You can only receive what you see yourself receiving. Nothing more, nothing less. And what you see is not what flashes through your imagination in moments of hope. It is the image of yourself that you have accepted as true, and this image lives deep in the silent chambers of your spirit. This is not about imagination. This is about identification. The law does not listen to hope, it obeys embodiment. Most people confuse the two. They believe that by wanting something deeply, they are inviting it. But want is not an invitation, it is a testimony that you do not yet have. And if your identity continues to testify lack, no matter what you affirm with your mouth, the law will return that lack with perfect accuracy. Because the law does not respond to your surface. It responds to your standing. I have seen men speak powerfully by mouth, yet faint in authority. I have seen women write declarations with ink while their soul trembles with fear. The universe does not count repetitions. It weighs identity. And if the one declaring is still rooted in inferiority, then all their decrees are nullified at the root. You say, I am wealthy, but if the one speaking those words is still secretly apologizing for taking up space, the law cannot fulfill it. You say, I am successful, but if you still carry guilt over what you were taught you didn't deserve, the law sees your guilt, not your sentence. It does not discern contradictions. It simply reflects the dominant identity in charge. And so I ask you, not lightly, who is speaking when you speak? Is it the child of God seated in spiritual authority, knowing that divine supply is already theirs? Or is it the one who still believes they must prove themselves to be good enough before life rewards them? Because this is what most people do not understand. The law is deaf to personal effort, to emotional intensity, to intellectual understanding. It moves only when commanded by spiritual authority. And spiritual authority is never performed. It is claimed, it is assumed, it is remembered. I often tell my students, stop trying to speak from your best behavior and start speaking from your truest identity. The one that existed before fear was taught, the one that remembers being spoken into existence by divine mind. That version of you does not need to convince the universe. It simply says, and it is done. Now listen carefully. The law does not wait to be convinced. It does not review your emotional files before responding. It does not cross-examine your sincerity. It simply echoes the vibration of identity. It matches who you are, not what you wish. That is why affirmations sometimes fail. Not because they are wrong, but because they are issued by someone who is not yet standing in the name that gives them force. And until the speaker steps into their spiritual inheritance, their words remain ornamental, lovely, repeated, but weightless. You may say, I am the head and not the tail, yet still carry the emotional memory of rejection from childhood. You may say, I walk in abundance, yet live under the voice of a parent who taught you to fear success. And so the law does not obey the sentence. It obeys the soul's agreement with limitation. That's why I teach, before you ever say a word, return. Return to your identity, not the one shaped by culture or past wounds, but the one etched in spirit before the world gave you another name. The moment you speak as that self, the law responds instantly, because it is not words that create. It is identity expressing itself through words. Your voice is not a tool, it is a title. And the law recognizes titles, not tone. Let me be clear. You do not become worthy by repeating declarations. You declare because you were already made worthy. You do not earn supply by proving need. You command because divine right is already your inheritance. This is why the Master said, before you pray, believe that you have received it, because the law is not activated by asking, it is activated by already being. So if you say, I am ready, and yet still act like one waiting for permission, you are out of alignment. If you declare, I receive now, while still identifying as unworthy, you are voicing a contradiction, and the law will mirror the dominant one. You are not who you think, you are what the law hears. And the law hears identity. It does not wait for your timeline, it waits for your embodiment. It does not argue with your delays. It simply mirrors your frequency. It does not punish your confusion, but it cannot override your unconscious self-decrees. This is why changing your life is not a matter of external effort. It is a matter of internal jurisdiction. The throne must be restored inside before the kingdom appears outside. The name must be corrected before the inheritance can be released. So I say to you now, before you speak again, check the name you're speaking under. Not the name your parents gave you. Not the name the world taught you. But the name the Spirit wrote upon your soul, because when that name is spoken, even silently, the gates open. The law aligns, supply flows, identity is destiny, and until it is remembered, nothing truly shifts. I speak not from hope, I speak from alignment. I speak not to the law, I speak as one with it. I speak as the heir, the ambassador, the daughter of divine mind. And from this place I say, let it be so, and it is. Hi ChatGPT. Every time you speak your name, you file a spiritual document. And the law signs it, without question, without delay, and without interpretation. When I say name, I do not refer to the label on your birth certificate. I refer to the identity you call yourself when no one is watching. I refer to the tone you use when you speak to yourself in private, the phrases you reach for in frustration, the roles you assume in your silence. That is your true name, and that name becomes your jurisdiction. If you call yourself unlucky, the law records it as a command. This one walks under the shadow of misfortune. If you call yourself behind, the law marks it. Deliver her supply in delay, for she has claimed time against herself. If you call yourself broken, the law does not weep. It simply aligns all of life around that decree. Most people do not understand this. They think calling themselves small is just being realistic. That saying, I'm always late, is a joke. That muttering, I can never get ahead, is just a moment of weakness. But in spiritual law, there are no jokes. There are only legal declarations. The words are your wand. And the wand does not care if you are being sarcastic. It still casts the spell. You cannot separate language from power. You cannot call yourself exhausted every day and expect life to energize you. You cannot say, I'm terrible with money, and expect money to obey you. You cannot call yourself still healing and expect the law to treat you as whole. These are not comments. They are court filings in the spirit, and the law is a perfect executor of every word it receives from its claimant. Your name in the spirit is not determined by how you feel. It is determined by what you repeat. Repetition is spiritual legislation. That is why affirmations are not merely poetic, they are procedural. And that is also why careless repetition is just as binding as conscious decree. If you say, I always mess things up, 1,000 times over your life, do not be surprised when you inherit that truth. The law heard it as your signature. And yet, the opposite is also true. Call yourself one with divine intelligence, and the gates of wisdom swing open. Call yourself the rightful heir of abundance, and watch supply begin to obey. Call yourself a spiritual authority, and see how your words begin to shape matter itself. The name you declare is not just a description, it is a title. And titles come with access. Titles unlock doors. Titles command attention. The difference between a wanderer and a ruler is not in strength, but in name. One knocks, the other enters. That is why I teach. Never say I am trying. For trying is not a title. It is a loophole. It grants the illusion of effort while carrying no authority. The law does not move for those who try. It moves for those who are. When Moses asked the burning bush, "Who shall I say sent me?" the answer was not a description. It was a name, I am. That name was enough to part seas, to command kings, to liberate nations. Because the name I am is not just identity, it is divine access. And yet every day people take that sacred phrase and bind themselves with it. I am tired, I am stuck, I am not ready, I am never chosen. These are not complaints, these are covenants. Every I am is followed by a throne or a chain. You are either enthroning your spirit or sentencing it. I say this to you with holy sobriety. Your life is not a reflection of your desire. It is a mirror of your self-naming. I do not need to hear your goals. I only need to hear what you call yourself when things go wrong. That is the truth the law is responding to. That is the name your subconscious answers to. And until that name is changed, until the inner roll call is rewritten, the outer world will keep obeying the wrong assignment. This is why spiritual maturity is not about volume or passion. It is about jurisdiction. You must speak from the name that holds authority. And if you do not yet feel that name, you must assume it in faith. Because the law does not check whether your voice trembles. It only checks whether the identity is correct. Stop saying, "I'm not there yet." Start saying, "I am aligned with what is mine." Stop saying, "I'm behind." Start saying, "I move in divine timing." Stop saying, "I can't keep it." Start saying, "I hold what belongs to me under grace." Because every time you say I am, heaven listens. And hell, too. And all of creation orients itself accordingly. There is no neutral ground, no safe way to speak against yourself. Every word trains the law how to treat you, and the law never forgets. So I ask you again, what name have you given yourself? Because if that name is rooted in fear, in trauma, in rejection, in lack, then that is what you will continue to call forth, not by punishment, but by lawful echo. Change the name, and the echo changes. Speak differently about yourself, not just in ritual, but in rhythm, in ordinary moments, in casual self-reference, in the quiet narrations you run under your breath. Speak as one who is no longer recovering, but revealing, not becoming, but returning. Return to the name you were given in spirit before the world renamed you in survival. Say it aloud. I am not who they said I was. I am not who fear trained me to be. I am not under the authority of lack. I am who the law recognizes. I am the image of divine order. I am the claimant of perfect supply. I am now. And from that name, speak. From that name, declare. From that name, command. Because when the name is right, the law responds immediately. Not out of mercy, but out of obedience. You are not waiting on God. God is waiting on the right claimant to show up in the courtroom. The name is the key. Speak it with reverence. Speak it with certainty. Speak it until your soul forgets every other name it once answered to. And then, watch how fast life reorganizes itself around you. People often ask me why their affirmations do not work. They repeat them faithfully. They write them down with care. They listen to them every morning. And yet, the very thing they affirm seems to slip further away. They say, I declare abundance, but my money disappears. Or, I speak love, but I still feel abandoned. And always, underneath the question, there is confusion, as if they believe the law is ignoring them. But I tell them the truth, whether they are ready to hear it or not. The law has never ignored you. It has only obeyed your root. Your affirmations are only the leaves, the surface, the performance. The law does not respond to performance. It responds to planting. And the root that you carry in your subconscious, the identity you hold beneath the words, is the only seed that bears fruit. You cannot sow lack in your self-concept and expect abundance in your speech to override it. The root always wins. No matter how beautiful the leaves, the spiritual world is not governed by appearances. It is governed by correspondence, and correspondence is not flattery, it is function. The inner and the outer must match. The word and the source must align. If there is dissonance, the stronger current dominates, and the stronger current is always the one hidden below. That is why you can say, I am whole, and still live like you are broken. You can repeat, I attract wealth, and still make decisions from fear. You can post your affirmations across your mirror and still act like someone who doubts her right to take up space. Because what you are doing is cosmetic, and the law does not respond to cosmetics. It responds to causation. If the cause, your identity, is built on trauma, shame, or doubt, then your declarations will fall flat. Not because the words are incorrect, but because the speaker has not been corrected. You cannot speak life from the mouth of someone who believes in death. You cannot speak victory while still married to victimhood. You cannot speak faith from a frequency of self-rejection. The mouth does not make the word. The identity does. So what is to be done? I tell you this. Do not throw away your affirmations, but do not idolize them either. Understand them for what they are, extensions of belief, not replacements. They are instruments. They are not identity itself. You must return to the source, who is speaking. That is always the question. That is always the gatekeeper. Many have been taught to treat affirmations like rituals. Say them enough times and something will happen. But repetition without root does not produce power. It produces delay. Because repetition alone is not proof of faith. It is often a mask for fear. The fearful affirm constantly, not because they believe, but because they are trying to outrun the unbelief they refuse to address. So I tell them, go to the root, speak fewer words, but speak them from truth. Let one sentence from identity carry more weight than 100 from imitation. If you still see yourself as cursed, then saying, I am blessed will not open heaven. It may inspire the mind, it may calm the emotion, but it will not change the order of your reality until you address the identity that called you cursed in the first place. Do not waste your voice trying to decorate a structure that is still rooted in lies. Tear down the root. Uproot the false self. Strip the name that fear gave you. And when you have cleared the soil, then speak from truth, from embodiment, from divine alignment. Then the affirmation becomes a decree. Then the word becomes flesh. Because the law does not just want to hear the right words, it wants to see who those words are coming from. The difference between an affirmation and a spiritual command is not in vocabulary, it is in jurisdiction. You may say, I receive as a beggar, and the universe does not move. Or you may say, I receive as an heir, and all of life reorganizes around you. It is not the phrase. It is the throne behind it. People think manifestation is about energy, about repetition, about vision boards and momentum. But manifestation is legal. It is contractual. It is covenantal. And until the speaker carries the identity of rightful ownership, nothing they say will carry the seal required to activate release. This is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to awaken you. You are not blocked because your affirmations are wrong. You are blocked because you are trying to build a palace of gold upon a foundation of sand. You are reciting truth while still anchored in falsehood, and the law cannot violate its own integrity to reward contradiction. So I urge you now, before you speak another affirmation, ask yourself, what self is speaking? What role am I standing in? What throne have I sat upon before opening my mouth? Because if you speak as someone hoping to become, you are not yet qualified to command. But if you speak as someone who remembers who they already are, your voice carries the architecture of creation. Go back. Go back to the root, not with guilt, not with shame, but with holy clarity. Look at where your identity was planted, who planted it, what voices shaped it, and whether those voices were aligned with truth. Then begin the uprooting, not with resistance, but with recognition. And once the root is exposed, lay down a new one. Deliberate, sacred, legal. Say to yourself in no uncertain terms, this is who I am. This is the self from which I speak. This is the name the law will now recognize. And from there, speak again. Repeat the same affirmations if you must, but from a new name, and see how differently they sound. Feel the weight return. Watch the words stop floating in hope and start carving through matter. Because now they are no longer trying to convince the law, they are operating as the law. And that is the difference between waiting and receiving, between echo and creation, between leaves and root. Speak from the root and let the law obey. Desire has no legal authority in the universe. It does not move the law. It does not grant you permission. It does not change your life. You may carry the most sincere longing in your soul and yet live a life of continued lack. Why? Because the law does not reward desire, it mirrors identity. You may desire freedom, but if your identity is still rooted in captivity, you will manifest chains. You may desire wealth, but if your inner name is still unworthy, your words will fall into an echo chamber. You may even desire healing. But if your identity has been shaped by pain for so long that you cannot imagine yourself whole, then every effort to declare health will be neutralized by the deeper agreement with brokenness. This is not punishment. It is precision. The law is not personal. It is spiritual physics. It does not ask what you want. It reflects what you are. And what you are is not defined by appearance or action. It is defined by energetic stance, by spoken alignment, by unspoken agreement. That is why I say again and again, you cannot override your spiritual name with emotional longing. You cannot bypass identity with performance. You cannot substitute desire for authority. Until the soul assumes the position of rightful heir, the throne remains unoccupied, and the law has no directive to obey. Many walk through life exhausted by wanting. They say, I've been asking for years. I've prayed, fasted, sacrificed. Why hasn't it come? And I answer them without hesitation, because asking is not command. Wanting is not identity. The law does not hear your waiting, it hears your standing. It is not enough to want deliverance. You must stand as one already delivered. Speak as one already free. Align as one already home. There is a lie circulating in spiritual circles, a dangerous distortion, that the more intense your desire, the closer your manifestation. That if you cry hard enough, yearn deep enough, prove your desperation, the universe will reward you. But the universe is not sentimental. It is just. And justice does not move by pity. It moves by principle. Desire, left untransformed, becomes spiritual stagnation. It convinces you that your hunger is evidence of alignment, when it is often proof of disconnection. The very act of wanting can lock you in separation if you do not understand what to do with it. Want is meant to reveal where your identity has not yet returned. It is a signal, not a source. It points you toward the name you must assume, not the condition you must chase. So when you feel the fire of desire rise within you, do not bow to it. Do not mistake it for power. Ask yourself instead, who do I need to become in order for this to no longer be out of reach? Because the law cannot grant you what contradicts your internal law. If your inner court still carries the verdict, I am not enough, then no matter how divine the request, the law must default to the verdict. This is why spiritual responsibility begins at the root, not in behavior, not in intention, not even in belief, but in identity. And identity is not wishful, it is chosen. You do not drift into your rightful self. You step into it, deliberately. You claim it by name. You affirm it with silence. You protect it with speech, and you reinforce it with every action that reflects it back to you. If you have been desiring something for years and it has not come, it is time to ask yourself, what identity is this desire bouncing off of? Is it hitting a wall named not yet? Is it falling into an atmosphere named someday? Or is it being received by a soul who knows, deeply and lawfully, this belongs to me now? Because when the identity shifts, the desire disappears. Not because the thing no longer matters, but because it begins to arrive. The proof of true alignment is no longer urgency, it is presence. You no longer chase the thing, you embody the version of you who already has it. You do not have to force the law to obey. You only have to stand in the right name. The law responds instantly to the soul in alignment. It does not hesitate, it does not deliberate, it mirrors. And the mirror has no bias. If you are still rehearsing the role of the abandoned, the overlooked, the not quite there yet, then your life must reflect that script. Not because the law is cruel, but because it is exact. Change the script. Not at the level of wording, at the level of identity. Do not say, I want abundance. Say, I am the one through whom abundance flows. Do not say, I hope for healing. Say, I embody divine wholeness now. Do not say, I am almost there. Say, I am the rightful heir, present and prepared. These are not semantics. These are legal reclassifications. And the law will not question your reclassification. It will obey it, but only when it is spoken from standing, only when it is reinforced by being. You must begin to monitor every moment where you slip into the posture of waiting. Every time your words say yes, but your tone says not yet. Every time your mouth affirms power, but your body shrinks. Every time your prayers are framed like begging instead of activating. Desire is not wrong. It is not evil, but it is incomplete. It must evolve into identity, or it will keep you circling promises that were never meant to be distant. You are not meant to desire peace. You are meant to be its host. You are not meant to want worthiness. You are meant to remember that it was never lost. The world has trained you to worship desire, to equate longing with passion, intensity with purpose. But spiritual law teaches otherwise. Longing that is not transmuted becomes lawlessness, and lawlessness produces delay. So I tell you now, step out of longing. Step into being. Do not wait to feel ready. Speak from the name that makes it so. Speak from the seat where nothing is withheld and nothing is delayed. Not because you deserve it, but because you are aligned. Desire fades when inheritance is remembered, and the law moves, not when you need it most, but when you speak from who you truly are. There is one identity that hides deeper than all the others. It does not shout. It does not make dramatic declarations. It does not openly resist truth. It cloaks itself in logic. It wraps itself in memory. It whispers, "I'm just protecting myself." And it is this voice, the voice of self-defense, that has kept more people from their spiritual inheritance than failure ever has. Because failure is obvious. You can name it, confront it, and rise from it. But self-defense pretends to be safety. It feels like wisdom. It sounds like modesty. And so it hides beneath your affirmations, beneath your spiritual language, beneath your cautious planning. And the law, which sees through appearances and responds only to jurisdiction, registers it for what it truly is: resistance. Self-defense is not always verbal. It often shows up in the posture of your being. You affirm abundance, but you tighten your grip on every dollar. You declare worthiness, but you downplay every compliment. You say, "I receive," but you brace yourself for disappointment. These are not neutral habits. These are signals. And the law, observing your signals, must mirror them. Because the law does not obey what you say you believe. It obeys what you have submitted to in identity. The most tragic thing about self-defense is that it feels noble. You say, "I'm being careful." You say, "I've just been hurt before." You say, "I want it to be realistic." But what you're truly doing is forming an identity around your trauma, and then calling it wisdom. You are allowing your past to write your present name. And the law, faithful to its design, must organize your life around that name. That is why I say to every soul seeking truth, be ruthless with what you call protection. Many times it is simply fear with a better vocabulary. It is fear dressed in spiritual garments. It is fear that has memorized your affirmations and learned how to echo them without surrendering anything. You must come to recognize that the most dangerous enemy to your destiny is not lack, but defense. Not silence, but guardedness. Not rejection, but the identity of the one who cannot afford to be open. This identity will speak all the right words and block every one of them from taking root. You were not born to defend. You were born to declare. You were not made to crouch. You were made to govern. And the moment you begin to protect yourself more than you express yourself, the law will begin to mirror your fortress instead of your faith. Self-defense trains the law to deliver carefully, slowly, reluctantly. Why? Because that is what you modeled. That is what you demonstrated. You may not have meant to, but the law does not interpret meaning. It mirrors action. If you withhold generosity, the law withholds increase. If you qualify every affirmation with fear, the law qualifies its fulfillment. If you speak your declarations with the tone of someone hoping it works, the law answers as if you are uncertain. Because the law is exact, it returns not what you desire, but what you have instructed it to see. So many souls have lived half-lives, not because they lacked vision, but because they lived under an identity of self-preservation. They called it discernment, they called it humility, but underneath, it was simply the unwillingness to be fully seen, fully exposed, fully known, as one who dares to expect goodness. And so I ask you now, not what do you affirm, but what do you protect? Where do you still guard your tone? Where do you still shrink your request? Where do you still calculate what is reasonable before you open your mouth? The identity of self-defense is subtle. It does not deny the law. It simply says, let me make room for disappointment. It doesn't resist hope. It just says, don't get too attached. And slowly it forms a personality that believes protection is safer than power. But spiritual law cannot be commanded from that position. The one who speaks with power must be unguarded, not reckless, but open, not naive, but surrendered. The identity that receives quickly is the identity that no longer hides. You must understand, defense is a form of delay. Every time you brace, you postpone. Every time you explain why it might not happen, you reinforce that version of reality. And the law, without emotion or judgment, adjusts itself to your new boundary. Some believe they are protecting themselves from disappointment, but in truth, they are instructing the universe to prepare for failure. They speak in half tones, they prepare backup plans, they hold contingency beliefs. All of these may feel mature, but they are simply the nervous habits of a soul who does not fully believe they are allowed to live as chosen. You must lay down the armor. It is heavy, it is unnecessary, it was useful once, perhaps in survival, in heartbreak, in seasons where you are not yet aware of who you are. But the moment you know you are one with the law, that armor becomes interference. The law does not need your protection. It needs your permission. Say it aloud. I no longer protect myself from good. I no longer shrink the vision. I no longer brace for what might go wrong. I no longer train the law to delay. This is not recklessness, it is alignment. This is not denial, it is dominion. And this is not arrogance, it is inheritance. You must speak now as one who no longer apologizes for existing fully. You must walk as one who has ceased negotiating with fear. You must act as one who has no use for half-truths, partial blessings, or spiritual rehearsals, because the law cannot deliver to a shield. It delivers to a name. And if your name is still the one who watches carefully, the one who expects the worst, or the one who hopes but guards, then that name becomes your limit. But if your name is the one who trusts, the one who is ready, the one who speaks with divine authority, then life must open. It has no choice. Because the law is not resisting you. It is waiting for the true you to show up and speak. So come out of hiding, drop the identity of defense, step into the fullness of your inheritance, and speak, not to explain, not to justify, but to command, to align, to be. The law is already listening. The question is, what version of you is speaking? Every word you speak is a spiritual instruction, and every instruction you issue carries a name. Whether you are aware of it or not, your voice tells the law who you are and who is authorized to receive what you have asked for. You are not simply speaking into the universe. You are filing delivery orders, each stamped with the identity of the one speaking. And so the law must ask, to whom shall this be delivered? To the child of divine mind who stands in rightful inheritance? Or to the one who still identifies as behind, as broken, as almost ready but not quite yet? The law does not decide for you. It does not review your tone for sincerity. It does not pause to evaluate how long you've waited. It only reads your self-issued identification and fulfills accordingly. This is why I say, your voice is not just sound, it is signature. You may speak about abundance with great enthusiasm, but if your voice carries the frequency of unworthiness, the law will search for that name and find no spiritual authority to deliver to. You may speak about healing, but if your voice trembles with subconscious guilt, the law will align with guilt, not wellness. Because the law cannot deliver to a name that was never spiritually authorized. Your voice trains the law, not once, but every day, every moment. Every sentence you utter is a vote toward identity. and the law is the most faithful student. It learns exactly who you are by what you repeatedly say about yourself, about your life, and about what you believe is possible. You think you are just venting? The law is listening. You think you are just being real? The law is receiving. You think your complaint was justified? The law is not judging. It is obeying. Every word is data. Every phrase is instruction. And every tone is registration. If you say nothing ever works for me, the law records. This claimant walks under the law of perpetual delay. If you say, I'm not ready yet, the law assigns the next season to remain unopened. If you say, I can't handle more, the law shields you from what you just called too much. Not to punish you, but to comply. Even your silences are instructions. If you stay quiet when you should speak, the law assumes you have nothing to claim. If you hesitate, the law registers lack of authority. If you speak with apology instead of command, the law will match your posture, not your potential. You may think the law operates by fairness, but I tell you, it operates by correspondence. And correspondence is not concerned with how hard you've worked. It is concerned with how fully you are aligned. What you say trains the law what version of you is currently active. And it is that version the law must serve. That is why so many spiritual people remain frustrated. They do the inner work, the affirmations, the prayers, but their voice never changes. They still speak as someone asking, pleading, hoping. They have not yet assumed the tone of command. And until that tone is adopted, the law cannot respond differently. Command is not loudness, it is not force, it is not ego, it is clarity. The voice of command knows who it is. It does not explain, it does not beg, it does not justify. It speaks from divine alignment, and the law moves accordingly. I do not say this to frighten you. I say it to awaken you to the legal nature of your own voice. You are not powerless. You are not unseen. You are being answered, but not always by what you hoped. You are being answered by what you have authorized. So if your voice says yes, but your tone says, I'm not sure, the law hears your doubt. If your mouth says, I receive, but your vibration says, I still fear loss, the law defers the delivery. Because the law cannot violate jurisdiction. It cannot bless you while you still self-identify as cursed. It cannot overflow where you have declared limitation. It cannot enter where your tone says, do not disturb. You must begin to speak from the name that matches your inheritance. Not just in words, but in weight. The voice of identity is unmistakable. It does not perform. It does not compare. It does not need to convince the law of anything. It is the law in expression. This is why Christ said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Because anything beyond that introduces confusion into the field. The law is not confused, but your voice can train it into delay, or worse, into cancellation. Say it clearly. Say it from your seat of power. Say it without the residue of your past trailing behind it. I am ready now. I am aligned now. I am authorized now. I am the one. Not someday. Not hopefully now. Your voice is not decoration. It is direction. It is the difference between potential and reality, between wandering and ruling, between repetition and release. Do not underestimate the sound that leaves your mouth. It either gathers angels or stalls delivery. It either activates the name of your inheritance or repeats the spell of your limitation. I say this with love, but with firmness. No amount of spiritual practice can override a contradictory tone. If your voice tells the law you are unsure, the law will remain still. If your voice tells the law you are unavailable, the law will wait outside your gates. Not out of punishment, but out of obedience. So retrain your voice. Speak from the seat of divine identity. Let your very tone carry the frequency of clarity. Let your speech sound like someone who has nothing to prove and everything to command. Because when the voice matches the name, when the words align with the one who speaks them, the law moves at once. It knows where to go. It knows who to serve. It knows which delivery belongs to which name. And in that moment, all delay disappears. Not because you finally earned it, but because you finally sounded like the one it was always meant for. There is a way to speak that changes nothing. There is a way to speak that only rehearses hope, repeats belief, mimics alignment, and leaves the law unmoved. And there is another way, a way of speaking that carries weight, that commands substance, that shifts the unseen into motion, not because the speaker is loud or urgent or clever, but because the speaker has returned to their seat. The seat of inheritance, the seat of spiritual jurisdiction, the only place from which the law responds without delay. You must understand, the law does not deliver to the one becoming. It delivers to the one who already is. And you do not become by effort. You become by declaration. Speak not as the one still on the way. Speak as the one who has arrived. Not in arrogance, not in delusion, but in spiritual fact. Because your inheritance was never pending. It was only waiting for the right claimant to show up and take the stand. This is the final correction. This is where desire becomes decree, where hope becomes law, where identity stops evolving and starts reigning. The moment you say, I am, the law moves. But only if that I am is aligned with divine truth. Not the truth of your upbringing, not the truth of your trauma, but the truth that was written upon your soul before the world gave you another name. You must now choose the voice that belongs to your rightful self. The voice that no longer checks in with emotion before speaking. The voice that does not ask permission. The voice that does not wonder or question or soften its tone to be more palatable. This voice is not hostile. It is not performative. It is clean. It is clear. It is final. Because once you know who you are, there is nothing left to explain. You simply speak, and it is. That is the inheritance. And so I ask you now, what does one who has already received sound like? They do not ask, when will it come? They do not say, I hope it's near. They do not perform belief to convince the law to notice them. They walk, speak, and move as those who have nothing left to chase. They no longer instruct the law with insecurity. They speak only from alignment. They no longer hold back declarations to avoid disappointment. They declare because truth demands voice. They no longer issue partial requests. They speak full sentences from a full name. There is no vibration of begging in them. No echo of apology. No trembling at the thought of being too much. Because the law does not recognize the half-spoken. It responds to fullness. The identity of the one who has inherited speaks differently. They do not hope to qualify. They authorize. They do not prepare to speak. They speak from having already been prepared. They do not wait for confirmation. They confirm with their voice. You are not waiting on God. You are not waiting on timing. You are not waiting on worthiness. You are waiting on one thing. The moment you stop identifying as the one who is almost ready and start speaking as the one who was always chosen. This is not theory. This is jurisdiction. The difference between someday and now is not the size of your faith, it is the name you speak from. So speak from your seat. Not the seat of your job, not the seat of your title, not the seat of your memories. The seat of spiritual law, where your word is recognized and fulfilled. Write this down. I now speak as the one who has already inherited. Write it. Say it. Live it. Let it become your atmosphere. When fear rises, return to it. When doubt whispers, return to it. When you are tempted to delay your voice, remember, delivery requires standing, and standing is not a feeling, it is a decision. Speak as the one who already owns. Speak as the one who has already been seen. Speak as the one who has already been approved, because when the law hears that voice, delivery begins, not later. Now, say this aloud. I no longer speak as the seeker. I speak as the secured. I no longer speak as the one hoping to be noticed. I speak as the one whom the law already recognizes. I no longer wait for things to happen. I authorize them. I decree them. Because I speak as the one who has already inherited. The throne is not somewhere far away. It is beneath your voice. And the moment you sit in it, everything you were waiting for stops waiting for you. It begins to obey.